bit windy today. It's gonna be a bit noisy. So DACA has been making a lot of news lately, which, in case you don't know, it stands for Deferred Action for Child Arrivals. It basically was Obama saying that we're not going to deport minors that came into the country illegally, give them a chance. None of them are citizens. They're just letting them stay kind of indefinitely. It puts them in a bad situation because they're not legal and they're not being deported and they're being allowed to stay and develop a life and set up roots here in the United States. And since they were here as children, they probably don't know much about where they came from. Deporting them would be horrible for them because they would be put into an environment that they don't know how to live in and how to thrive in. As bad as it seems that Trump would undo that policy, the truth of the matter is the policy in the first place was not congruent with what the law says. Trump is really undoing something that was unconstitutional. So I get that. And I get that he wants to push the issue. He's given them 6 months to figure this out and get it done the right way, which I think is good. He's putting that pressure on. Hopefully something happens within the next 6 months to actually get this taken care of. But I think he's using it as a political tool. I think he's trying to get leverage on the Democrats to pass some of the things he wants, like a wall, which Senator Ryan said, we can't solve this problem without better border security. Well, I got a whole nother perspective for you. Back before the 14th Amendment, back before social services and all that, we had open border policy for immigration. Anyone could come here and show that they're not destitute or sick or something, not bringing diseases and things into the country. They were allowed in. There was no quotas. We didn't have all these restrictions and red tape and huge, oh my goodness, thousands and thousands of dollars in fines that you have to pay. And of course they call them fees. It's really just a tax that people have to pay in order to come here legally. It's horrible. You wonder why there's so much illegal immigration in this country, because it is so much easier to come here that way, despite the challenges and the potential incarceration and deportation that comes with it. It's still easier to come here illegally. You want better border security, you've got to get rid of the insurgents upon the border. You've got to get rid of the reason why people want to come here illegally. We used to be better than this. I mean, do you believe in the Bill of Rights or don't you? I hear people all the time talking about the Bill of Rights. It only applies to U.S. citizens because they're not U.S. citizens, they're not under the Constitution. Do you believe in the Bill of Rights or don't you? Do you believe these are fundamental rights that people deserve or don't you? I think these are rights that everyone in the world should have. People are so much better off when they're free. Well, but the immigrants are using up our resources and stealing all this social services and things like that. Well, where in the Constitution does it say we can have all these social services? Yeah, I get it. You don't want to have people dying on the streets because the hospitals won't take them because they can't pay or they don't have insurance or anything like that. Well, insurance is a whole nother issue. You can check out my feelings on that. But before we had Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, all these other things, people were not dying in the streets. It's just a ridiculous argument. There are too many charities out there, too many people who would not want to see that happen, that would organize services for them without the help of the government to make sure people don't go around dying in the streets. If it bothers you, go do something about it. Don't sit there and go to the government and say, hey government, let's do something about this. No, you do something about this. Let's get government out of your way so you can do something about this. When government does these things, the money is, it's inevitably, just by the very nature of what a government is, the money that gets put into those services and things is going to be used in very inefficient ways. A government bureaucracy that has all kinds of rules and paperwork and things that they have to do, they can't be flexible like a private organization can, like a nonprofit can. and determine people's actual needs and what people individually need, rather than trying to follow some law or some guidelines or some policy. It's just so much better when individuals do it. The more separation there is from the source and the receiver, the more entitlement the receiver feels. Government creates a huge gap between the person who's being taxed, usually through their income, so that by the time they get their paycheck, they don't even think about how much money they're being taxed, because they just think about, well, this is how much money I have. They don't go to the store and buy something and then have a huge tax put on top of it. No, it's already gone before they even see the money. And then it goes through this unfilling, unpersonal set of laws and regulations and things that, determine how the money's going to be dispersed and divided up and sent to the states, and then the states divide it up and figure out how they're going to use it and what they're going to put it into, and blah, 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 blah. And by the time it gets to the recipient is not getting it from the source. They're getting it from somebody behind a desk that doesn't have time to care about their individual needs. And as they continue to get used to these payouts and this money and all that, they start to feel like, well, I deserve this. I'm supposed to get this. This is my life. This is what I do. This is how I live. Food stamps and Medicaid. And if somebody threatens to take that away, someone says, no, this isn't working, this is getting too expensive, we have $100 trillion plus of unfunded liabilities in this country. As the baby boomers get older and older, and the younger people who haven't had enough children, haven't had enough offspring, there just isn't. We need 2-3 times the population base that we have now of young kids in order to support all these baby boomers. It's unsustainable. It's completely unsustainable. Look into demographic winter. It is a real issue. It's been going on for decades. It's not getting any better. It's getting worse. It's happening all over the world. In fact, the only reason population growth has been going on in the world for the last 100 years or so, a couple hundred years, is because we've been living longer. Has nothing to do with how many kids we're having. We're having less and less kids. Birth rates are down, and they're continuing to go down. As soon as the baby boomers and all these old people all die off, you're going to start seeing the population of the earth drop. We might hit 10 billion, probably not, probably more like 9 billion, and it's going to drop off. It's going to drop in half by the time this is all over if we don't get the birth rates up anytime soon. This is why it's a Ponzi scheme. It's not sustainable. You can't sustain this. It doesn't work. Especially when you go from the original intent of helping people who are past life expectancy. Well, life expectancies have gone up. Social Security plans have been expanded, hugely expanded. And now everybody's entitled to it at some point, in some way. The only way you can sustain that is to move all those funds into private accounts. Give people education on how to manage those accounts. I mean, honestly, the one thing I like that states do, I don't think the federal government should do this. States do this. Infrastructure and education. There's a clause in the Constitution that allows the federal government to do infrastructure. It's called post roads. But the states, I absolutely think they should be doing education and infrastructure, because those are the two things that make this country rich, that made this country the wonderful place that it is. And of course, we're not competing on a global scale anymore, because we've had too much socialization, too much bureaucracy. It's actually kind of inevitable. If you look at history, this is the way every great empire goes. They have their peak, and then they start doing all these social programs. They start screwing with the money supply. And they start to slip, and their eventual demise happens. One thing we can start doing, if you want to fix Social Security, you want to fix this demographic winter issue, You need immigrants. We need immigrants. We need them to be legal so that they pay into the Ponzi schemes and the social plans and the taxes and all that to help cover all that stuff. That's your immediate solution right there. Open up the floodgates, let them in, and then border security becomes so much easier because you know the only reason someone would be sneaking across the border is because they're trying to do something illegal. Because they can easily come here legally. They can come and get a work visa, a temporary work visa, whatever, come into the States, do their work, and as they show that they're becoming a productive member of society, you extend their visa. You know, the first one could be 6 months. Then you can give them one for 2 years. And then if they're still doing good, you give them one for another 5 years. By then, they're eligible to become a citizen. If they want to stay, let them become a citizen and pass the citizenship test and make the oath. It's that simple. It doesn't have to be this huge, massive bureaucracy that we have today with quotas and this and that and the other. It's insane. Go read the inscription on the Statue of Liberty and tell me if that's what we're doing today, because I guarantee you it's not. So let's stop talking about who deserves what, and let's start talking about rights and freedoms that all human beings across the world deserve. Every one of them, whether they're a U.S. citizen or not. And I'm not talking about the UN's list of rights, because some of the things the UN lists as rights are not rights, because in order to guarantee them, you would have to force people to do things. And that violates those people's rights. You can't have a right that violates someone else's rights. True rights are things government should be in place to protect, that doesn't require them to take rights away from other people to do so. Rights, in fact, should be things that governments are banned from doing anything against. That's really all they should be. You know, the right to protect yourself, to bear arms. And I'm not talking about my bear arms. I'm talking about arms as in what they originally meant, which was your sword, your rifle, your musket, your whatever, you know, tools you could reasonably carry in your arms to defend yourself with. And yes, that includes semi-automatic rifles. I know people like to call them assault rifles. They're not assault rifles. Assault rifles are high-powered, fully automatic, not semi-automatic. Fully automatic, bayonets and all that crap. The cosmetics have nothing to do with it, but unfortunately that's what we tend to pass our laws based on, is cosmetics, which is ridiculous. But that's a whole nother topic. The right to free speech. That doesn't mean you have a right to come and steal my intellectual property. That doesn't mean you have a right to spam me or my blog or do something crazy like that. What it means is you have the right to set up your own blog, set up your own YouTube channel, and say whatever you want on that, without someone coming along and saying you can't say that. Freedom of speech wasn't meant to protect acceptable speech. Nobody had a problem with acceptable speech. It was there to protect dissenting ideas, free flow of different ideas, of ideas that weren't so popular, that maybe were offensive. Personally, if you're just going around swearing all the time, I'm not going to want to listen to you. A lot of people aren't going to want to listen to you. You're just going to look like an idiot. If you really want to defend your rights, you got to be reasonable and in your use of those rights. That's really what happens a lot of times, is people abuse their rights, take advantage of their rights, use it to hurt other people, and then everybody says, oh, we have to prevent this from ever happening again. Who cares if it was an isolated incident that only happens every once in a while? We have to prevent this from ever happening again. Of course, the only way they can do that is take away people's rights. That's why we have immigration quotas. That's why we have gun laws that honestly don't make sense half the time. This is why we have a government that is so out of control, that has so much liabilities and debt. It's the wrong way of thinking. Someone does something wrong, you make an example of them. You say, this is wrong, see everybody, he's going to jail. We incarcerate way too many people in this country. We have the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world by far. We have more people in jail than other countries that have more people. Many times more for things that don't need to be incarcerated, especially drugs. People don't need to be incarcerated for abusing drugs. That makes them better drug users. That makes them worse. They don't need incarceration. They need rehabilitation. They need help. I think it was Norway that did that. Stop incarcerating people, and they put that money that they were thrown into their jails and put it into rehabilitation programs. But there's one thing that will do more to help the world, to help individuals, to help our freedoms, to help our upcoming generations to be the best they can be. And this is documented. This is well documented. People find these statistics offensive and wrong because they're not inclusive. They don't adhere to the small vocal minority of people who want to live alternate lifestyles. And I'm not here to say you can't live your life the way you want to live, but if you're going to raise a child, that child has rights. That child deserves a good male and a good female role model. I hear that argument all the time. Oh, but heterosexuals abuse their children all the time. No, they don't. They sometimes are people who are abusive. Doesn't matter if they're heterosexual, gay, straight, whatever. There's abusive people out there. That's not the point. The point is, a child has, and this is well documented, has the best, most greatest advantage at having a productive, good life if they have a strong male and a strong female role model in their life. The best way to do that is with a mother and father who are married in a committed relationship with each other, committed to raising that child together. That gives that child the best advantage they possibly can in life. And I don't care if you think that's unfair. There's no such thing as fair. Fair is a subjective notion that people who are weak or who feel like they're at a disadvantage make up to try and have a cop-out as to why they can't do better. Fair is a fantasy. Fair is a utopian idea. You're not going to get it in this life. You probably will in the next. So let's not separate the families. Let's not take these kids away from their parents, legal or illegal. Just because something's legal or illegal doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's moral. Doesn't mean it's the best way to do it. President Trump, as much as what he did seems bad and horrible, it pushes the issue, and the issue needed to be pushed. Let's hope we get the right outcome from it. Peace.